So, how in the world does a yoga and meditation class, a group promising spiritual enlightenment, end up transforming into a high-tech doomsday cult? A cult capable of unleashing a weapon of war on one of the world's biggest cities. Well, that is the absolutely wild story of Shinrikyo, and we're about to break it all down. Okay, let's set the scene. It's Tokyo, the world's busiest city, and it's March 20th, 1995. We're right in the middle of the morning rush hour. You've got millions of people packed into the arteries of the city's subway system, just trying to get to work on what seemed like a totally normal Monday morning. But deep, deep down, beneath the bustling streets, an invisible, silent attack was about to begin, and it was one that would change Japan forever. On 3 separate converging subway lines, people suddenly started choking. Their vision went blurry, and then they just collapsed into these violent convulsions. The subway cars were filling up with a poison you couldn't see or smell. It was just pure chaos. First responders who rushed to the scene started getting sick themselves, poisoned just by touching the victim's clothing. The entire heart of Tokyo was completely paralyzed. The final toll, it's just staggering. 13 people died, but more than 5,800 were injured. Many of them suffered permanent neurological damage. Think about that number. That's thousands of lives just shattered in a matter of minutes. The weapon they used was sarin, a military-grade nerve agent first cooked up by Nazi scientists. So, the question that baffled the entire world was, who would do this? Was it a foreign country? Some rogue military group? Well, the answer turned out to be so much more disturbing than anyone could have guessed. The killers weren't from another country. They were a domestic religious group called Shinrikyo, a scientific doomsday cult. The difference between IAM's public image and what was really going on is just mind-blowing. To the public, they were all about yoga, meditation, health and wellness. But behind that peaceful mask was a terrifying truth. Paramilitary training, brainwashing their members with LSD, and a full-blown doomsday weapons program with assassination squads. It's just an insane contrast. And at the dead center of it all was the guru, Shoko Asahara. This guy, originally named Chizuo Matsumoto, was a failed businessman who'd actually been arrested for selling fake medicine, so he just rebranded himself as this enlightened master. He used cheap tricks like a faked photo of himself levitating to lure people in. He even convinced his followers his DNA was so special, so divine, that they were paying thousands of dollars to drink his bathwater. You can't make this stuff up. But here's maybe the most chilling part of this whole story. Who actually carried out the attack? The men who released the sarin weren't just some thugs off the street. No. These were Japan's best and brightest. A senior heart surgeon, physicist, an AI specialist. All of them graduates from Japan's top universities, and all of them were blindly loyal to Asahara. So that's the big question, right? How do you get these brilliant minds to commit mass murder? Well, it all seems to go back to one single moment, a moment of total and complete public humiliation that became their turning point. See, back in 1990, Asahara and his top guys got this bright idea. Let's go into politics. And they didn't do it by halves. They poured an estimated $7 million into this really bizarre, very public campaign. And what did they get for all that money and effort? A measly 1,783 votes. Total. The public didn't just reject them, they basically laughed them off the stage. And for a guy who genuinely believed he was a living god, well, that was an insult he just could not handle. So what does he do? He doesn't reflect. He doesn't think, maybe my message is wrong. No. He invents this huge conspiracy theory. He claims the election was rigged by Freemasons and the government. And right then, his whole worldview flipped. Society wasn't something to be saved anymore, it was something to be punished. And you can see this really clear, almost logical path from that moment on. Step 1, the humiliating loss. Step 2, that loss leads to a paranoid conspiracy theory. Step 3, that theory changes their entire religion from one of salvation to one of retribution. And step 4, that new mission leads them to reorganize into a paramilitary state within a state, built specifically for war. But to really get his followers on board with this new, violent direction, he needed a religious excuse. And he came up with something he called POA,
He took a real Buddhist concept and just twisted it into a justification for mass murder. He told his followers, these brilliant scientists, that killing spiritually blind outsiders was actually an act of mercy. He said it would save their victims' souls from bad karma. It was the ultimate loophole. It basically gave them the theological green light they needed to kill. And once they had that justification, armed with this new purpose, Aum started building an arsenal for the end of the world. And the scale of it, it's just mind-blowing. You had Asahara with a crazy vision, and then you had his shadow cabinet, the people who made it all real. Hideo Murai, a physicist leading the Sarin program. Masami Tuchiya, the chemist who actually figured out how to make it. Kiyohide Hayakawa, the guy buying Russian weapons. And Yoshihiro Inoue, who coordinated the whole subway attack on the ground. And get this, they used their status as a tax-exempt religious group to build all of this. Satien 7, a chemical weapons plant that could produce battlefield quantities of sarin. Biolabs with huge fermenters to brew anthrax. A secret factory to mass-produce AK-74s. They even bought a Russian military helicopter so they could spray sarin from the air. And you can see their violence just escalate, step by step. It didn't start with the subway attack. Oh no. It began with targeted murders, like an anti-cult lawyer and his entire family, including their infant son. Then they tried biological weapons, but that failed. So in 1994, they did a kind of lethal prelude, a smaller sarin attack in a city called Matsumoto that killed 8 people. It was a test run for the main event, the Tokyo attack in 1995. So what was the endgame? What was this all for? The grand design, it was nothing less than a coup d'etat. They wanted to take over the entire country. The subway attack, that was just the opening act. The full plan, phase 1, was to use that helicopter to spray sarin all over Japan's government district. Phase 2, in the chaos, the state would be paralyzed, creating a power vacuum. Phase 3, Aum's own monk army would emerge from their bunkers to restore order. And the endgame, Shoko Asahara sitting on the throne as the sacred emperor of a new Japan. But of course, the grand design completely fell apart. The attack triggered a massive police crackdown, and after a 2-month manhunt, where do they find this self-proclaimed emperor? Not on a throne, no. They find him hiding in a tiny, secret crawl space in one of his compounds. He was arrested and charged with 27 counts of murder. The legacy of what Aum did was profound. It completely shattered Japan's long-held sense of public safety. It also forced the country to totally rewrite its laws, stripping away the near-total freedom and immunity that religious groups had enjoyed up until that point. You know, the story of Aum Shinrikyo is just this terrifying reminder that the perpetrators of the worst atrocities aren't always some kind of obvious monster from the fringes of society. Sometimes they are the brightest minds among us, driven by a corrupted ideology. And it really leaves us with this final chilling question. When you combine that kind of brilliance with a truly twisted sense of purpose, what's to prevent the next doomsday?